Are you still a virgin, sweetheart? If you are, I'll pay top price. Let's auction it off right here and now. In just one vulgar joke at a lavish family banquet in Koreatown, the entire room suddenly fell dead silent. The laughter died instantly. The most powerful men in Los Angeles suddenly realized they had just touched the biggest taboo of the crime boss, Daniel Hahn. That fragile, impoverished girl trembling while holding the water pitcher, Maya Jackson, had no idea that, in this very moment, she had unwittingly stepped into the center of the darkest, most possessive, and bloodiest storm of love this city had ever witnessed. A debt of gratitude from 15 years ago, a promise made at a deathbed, and a man willing to burn down the entire underworld just to protect her. Do you dare follow this journey from extreme poverty to an intense love that transcends all boundaries of class, race, and sin? Stay with me, because the story is about to begin. Right now. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Crimson Romance Stories and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. All right, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. I stood in the shadowed corner of the private banquet hall in Koreatown, Los Angeles, watching the room the way I always watched, like a predator who had long ago learned that stillness was the sharpest weapon. The air smelled of grilled kalbi, punch on steam, and expensive whiskey. Crystal glasses clinked under warm amber lights. My men laughed too loudly, the way they always did when they felt safe inside these walls. Safe because I made sure they were. My name is Daniel Hahn, 34 years old, fair-skinned son of Korean immigrants who built an empire out of nothing and then handed the dark parts of it to me. I run the Hahn Syndicate, real estate, import-export, nightclubs, and the protection rackets that keep Koreatown breathing. I live alone in a downtown penthouse that could swallow 10 families whole. I have more money than I could burn in 3 lifetimes. And every night, when the city lights blur below my windows, the guilt gnaws deeper. The lives I've ended, the choices I can never unmake, the blood that will never wash from my hands. Tonight was supposed to be routine, a family gathering to honor my uncle's wife on her recovery. Then she walked in. Maya Jackson, 21 years old, African American. So thin it hurt to look at her. Collarbones sharp under the borrowed black dress that hung loose on her frame. She moved through the room carrying trays of tea and medicine reminders for my aunt, eyes lowered, shoulders curved inward as if the world had spent years teaching her to take up as little space as possible. I knew her story because I had arranged for her agency to assign her here. I knew she lived in a crumbling studio in South Los Angeles, that she worked double shifts as a home health aide while studying nursing at community college, that she often went to bed hungry because rent came first. I knew because I had promised a dying man I would watch over his daughter. But knowing and seeing were different things. Seeing her exhausted grace, the faint tremor in her hands from lack of sleep, the way she smiled softly at my aunt even when no one was looking, it carved something raw inside my chest. I had spent weeks watching her from a distance, telling myself it was duty. Tonight, duty felt like something far more dangerous. I stayed in the shadows, nursing a glass of whiskey, fighting the storm building inside me. Loneliness had been my companion for years, a cold, familiar ache. But watching Maya move through my world, so fragile yet so unbroken, made that ache roar into something violent, possessive, almost painful. I wanted to shield her from every cruelty that had ever touched her. I wanted to feed her, warm her, erase the exhaustion from her eyes. I wanted, God help me, to keep her. Then David spoke. David Kim, my oldest friend and capo, 3 drinks deep and feeling playful. He leaned toward Maya as she refilled water glasses near his table, voice carrying just enough to cut through the chatter. "Are you still a virgin, sweetheart? If you are, I'll pay top price. Let's auction it off right here and now." Laughter rippled around him. Crude, careless, the kind of joke men make when they think power protects them from consequences. Maya froze. The pitcher in her hand trembled. Color drained from her face, then rushed back in a flood of humiliated heat. She was trapped between tables, surrounded by men who wore watches that cost more than she earned in a year. David wasn't finished. He grinned wider, enjoying the attention. "How old are you and still not married yet? Or are you waiting for some rich guy to come along and take your virginity?" The room's laughter swelled, then faltered. "Because I moved. I didn't remember crossing the floor. One moment I was in the shadows, the next I stood beside her chair, my hand closing around the back of it with enough force to make the wood creak." The laughter died instantly. Every conversation stuttered into silence. My voice came out low, lethal, a sound I usually reserved for men about to die. "With who?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Maya looked up at me, eyes wide and dark, shimmering with unshed tears and confusion. She had never heard me speak above a quiet instruction before. I had made sure of that, keeping distance, keeping control. It was just a joke, Mr. Han," she whispered, voice soft, restrained, trembling with the respect poverty teaches when addressing power. He asked something ridiculous, and I answered ridiculous. But David's amusement had vanished. He knew that tone, the whole room knew. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed locked on her, on the faint shadows under those beautiful eyes, the way her lower lip quivered before she caught it between her teeth, the unbearable fragility of her in this den of wolves. Something inside me snapped, not anger at David, but a deeper, more terrifying rupture. Jealousy, raw and animal, flooded every vein. The thought of any man in this room, any man anywhere, touching her, claiming her, imagining her, it was unbearable. The guilt that always lived in me twisted into something darker. The realization that I had no right to feel this way, yet I felt it anyway. Fierce, consuming, irreversible. I leaned down slightly, close enough that only she could hear. "You don't joke about that here," I said quietly, every word edged with the storm I was barely containing. "Not ever." Her breath caught. Fear flickered across her face. Fear of me, of the sudden shift in the air, of the power she could sense coiling around her like smoke. Then confusion. Then something else, a spark of curiosity beneath the dread, as if she sensed the turmoil behind my control. I straightened, forcing my hand to release the chair. The room remained silent, waiting for my next move. I looked at David. "Apologize." He stood immediately. "Maya, I'm sorry. That was disgusting and out of line. It won't happen again." She nodded, barely, still staring at me with those wide, disoriented eyes. I could see her world tilting. The poor girl who scrubbed floors and skipped meals to survive, suddenly the focus of the most powerful man in the room. The contrast was brutal, heartbreaking. She looked small, lost, and far too breakable. Inside me, the guilt screamed louder than ever. I had brought her into this world to protect her, and now I had terrified her. Yet beneath the guilt, that fierce, burning affection surged higher, an overwhelming need to shield her, to make her mine in every way that mattered, to erase every humiliation she had ever endured. I turned away before I did something irreversible, walking back toward the shadows. But I felt her gaze follow me, confused and cautious and curiously unafraid. The night had just begun to unravel, and I already knew I would never be the same. The silence that followed my command stretched like a wire pulled to breaking. Every man in the banquet hall knew better than to breathe too loudly when I used that tone. David's apology hung in the air, sincere but useless now. The damage was done. I forced myself to release the chair and step back, but my eyes stayed on Maya. She sat rigid, hands knotted in her lap, staring at the tablecloth as if it might swallow her whole. The borrowed dress, simple black cotton I had quietly arranged through the agency, swallowed her frame instead. I could count the sharp lines of her shoulder blades beneath the fabric, evidence of too many skipped meals, too many nights when hunger won over pride. The sight twisted something vicious inside me, a rage that had nothing to do with David and everything to do with a world that had let her suffer like this. Guilt slammed into me next, hot and familiar. I was the reason she was here tonight, surrounded by men who saw her as entertainment. I had placed her in this room to fulfill a deathbed promise, telling myself it was protection. But protection shouldn't feel like this. Like watching a lamb walk into a den of wolves while I stood by, helpless against my own monstrous instincts. She finally lifted her gaze to me. Those dark eyes, ringed with exhaustion, held a storm of emotions that tore at my composure. Humiliation first, then confusion, then a flicker of something wary and searching. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. I saw her chest rise in a shallow, trembling breath. The room around us blurred. There was only her. I should have walked away. I should have let David's apology stand and retreated to the shadows where I belonged. Instead, I pulled out the chair beside her and sat. The scrape of wood on tile sounded deafening in the hush. "Maya," I said, keeping my voice low so only she could hear. "Look at me." She did, slowly, cautiously, like someone expecting a blow. When our eyes met fully, something inside me fractured. Up close, the signs of her hardship were merciless. Faint bruises of sleeplessness beneath her eyes, the dry crack at the corner of her mouth from dehydration, the way her thin fingers worried at the hem of her sleeve. Yet beneath the fragility, there was strength, quiet, stubborn, unbreakable. It undid me. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," I continued. My throat felt raw. "No one will speak to you that way again, not while you're under my roof." Her brow furrowed in confusion. "Your roof, Mr. Hahn? I'm just the aide. I work for the agency." The innocence of the statement, the complete ignorance of how deeply I had already inserted myself into her life, sent another wave of guilt crashing through me. I wanted to tell her everything. That her father had saved my life 15 years ago, that I had promised him on his final day in that sterile hospital room that I would watch over her, that I had pulled strings to place her with my aunt because it was the only way to keep her close enough to protect without frightening her. Instead, I said only, "You're under my protection now. That's all you need to know tonight." Her eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face, not of violence, but of the unknown. I saw her glance around the room, taking in the expensive suits, the guarded postures of my men, the sudden deference in every gaze turned our way. Realization dawned slowly. She was no longer invisible, and that terrified her more than David's crude words ever could. "Mr. Hahn," she whispered, voice soft and trembling with respect. "I don't understand. I'm nobody. I just need this job." The humility in those words, the raw plea beneath them, struck me like a physical blow. Nobody. She believed she was nobody. After years of cold nights in a studio with broken heat, of choosing between bus fare and food, of humiliation at food banks and emergency rooms that turned her away for lack of insurance, she had learned to see herself as weightless, disposable. Something feral rose in my chest, a violent, possessive need to prove her wrong, to wrap her in every layer of safety and comfort my wealth could buy, to feed her until the hollows in her cheeks filled out, to erase every memory of hunger and cold and despair. But beneath that need, the guilt screamed louder than ever. Who was I to offer her anything? A man whose hands were stained with blood, whose empire was built on fear and favors, whose loneliness had calcified into something cruel and cold. I didn't deserve to touch even the hem of her dress. Yet the jealousy still burned, white-hot, irrational, all-consuming. The thought of any other man looking at her the way David had, imagining her, wanting her, it made my vision tunnel. I had never felt anything like it, not for any woman in my 34 years. This thin, exhausted girl from South Los Angeles had reached inside my chest and seized my heart with both hands without even knowing it. I stood abruptly, afraid of what I might do if I stayed close enough to smell the faint scent of hospital soap on her skin. "David," I said without looking at him, "clear the room. Family meeting is over." Men moved instantly, chairs scraping, quiet murmurs rising as they filed out. Within minutes, only Maya and I remained beneath the warm lights, surrounded by half-eaten plates of galbi and kimchi that suddenly seemed obscene in their abundance. She stayed seated, hands clenched in her lap, watching me with that mixture of fear and curiosity that was quickly becoming my undoing. I walked to the window overlooking Koreatown's neon signs. My reflection stared back, fair-skinned, tailored black suit, expression carved from stone. The monster she should fear. But inside, everything was shattering. Behind me, I heard her stand, the soft rustle of fabric. "Mr. Han, thank you for stopping him. I should go now. My shift ended an hour ago, and the last bus..." I turned sharply. "You're not taking the bus." Her eyes widened again. "But my driver will take you home." The words came out harsher than I intended. I softened my tone. "It's late. It's not safe." She hesitated, then nodded, accepting because refusal wasn't an option when someone like me gave an order. But I saw the fresh wave of confusion cross her face. Why would the most powerful man in Koreatown concern himself with a poor aid's safety? If only she knew. As I escorted her toward the private elevator, my hand hovering near, but never touching, the small of her back, the storm inside me raged on. Guilt, jealousy, longing, protectiveness so fierce it frightened even me. I had spent years convincing myself I was beyond redemption, that loneliness was the price of power. Tonight, in the space of a single crude joke and one trembling whisper, Maya Jackson had proven me wrong, and I already knew I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt her again. The elevator doors closed behind us with a soft hiss, sealing Maya and me in a cocoon of polished steel and dim gold light. She stood as far from me as the small space allowed, back pressed to the wall, arms wrapped around herself like a shield. The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. I could hear her breathing, shallow, quick, the sound of someone trying not to panic. I kept my eyes forward, hands clasped behind my back, fighting every instinct that screamed to reach for her, to steady her, to promise her the world on a silver platter she had never been allowed to touch. My driver waited below in the underground garage, engine idling in one of the black SUVs that cost more than most people's houses. In a few minutes, she would be gone, back to that crumbling studio in South Los Angeles, where the heat barely worked and the windows rattled in the wind. The thought alone sent a fresh surge of rage through me, not at her, never at her, but at the cruel, indifferent machinery of the world that had ground her down to this. When the doors opened, the cool air of the garage rushed in. She stepped out first, hesitant, as if expecting the floor to give way beneath her. I followed, guiding her with a gesture rather than touch. My driver, Park, opened the rear door without a word. Maya paused at the threshold, looking up at me with those exhausted, searching eyes. "Mr. Han, thank you for the ride. For everything tonight." Her voice was barely above a whisper, soft and restrained, laced with the automatic respect poverty drills into a person when speaking to power. "I don't know why you're being so kind, but I'm grateful." Kind. The word landed like a blade between my ribs. If she only knew the storm she had unleashed inside me, the jealousy that still simmered, the guilt that clawed deeper with every second, the fierce, irrational need to keep her close forever. "Get home safe," I said, the words rougher than I intended. She nodded and slipped into the back seat. The door closed, the SUV pulled away, taillights disappearing up the ramp. I stood there long after it was gone, alone in the echoing garage, the weight of the night pressing down until I could hardly breathe. That should have been the end of it for the evening. Instead, it was only the beginning. My phone vibrated against my chest, Uncle's name on the screen. I answered immediately. "Daniel," he said without greeting, voice low and grave. "My office, now." 10 minutes later, I sat across from him in the study above the banquet hall, the same room where decisions that shaped Koreatown were made. The air smelled of old wood and cigar smoke. My uncle, Don Park, silver-haired and sharp-eyed at 70, studied me over steepled fingers. "You scared the girl tonight," he said quietly. "I scared everyone tonight," I replied. David crossed a line. He did, but that wasn't why the room went cold. His gaze pierced straight through me. You looked at her like she was already yours. I didn't deny it. I couldn't. He sighed, leaned back. There's something you need to know. Something I promised her father I'd only tell you if it became necessary. My blood slowed in my veins. Her father? Marcus Jackson. 15 years ago, he was our outside accountant. Brilliant with numbers. Quiet man. Kept to himself. Uncle paused, choosing his words with care. He discovered the Choi family had planted someone inside our books, cooking numbers, preparing to bleed us dry before a takeover. Marcus came to me with proof. Saved us millions. Saved lives, including yours. They were planning to hit you first, make it look like a random street robbery. The memory slammed into me. 19 years old, reckless, walking out of a club late one night, certain I was untouchable. A car that slowed too much at the curb, a feeling in my gut I couldn't name. Then nothing. No shots, no blood. The threat vanished overnight. Marcus asked for nothing, Uncle continued. Only that we let him walk away clean. Start over in another city. He had a little girl. Didn't want her growing up in our shadows. His eyes softened, something rare for him. 3 months ago, he contacted me from his hospital bed. Cancer. Final stages. He knew you were running things now. Asked one thing. Watch over Maya if she ever came close enough to need it. He said she was studying nursing, trying to make something of herself despite everything. The room tilted. Every moment of the past few weeks rearranged itself in my mind. The agency assignment, the background checks, the quiet instructions to make sure she got the job with my aunt. I had done it all believing it was distant obligation, honoring a debt to a man who once saved my life. But tonight, watching her tremble under David's crude words, feeling that jealousy explode like a living thing inside my chest, it hadn't felt like obligation, it had felt like destiny. Like the universe finally punishing me by giving me something I wanted more than absolution, something I had no right to claim. Uncle watched me closely. She doesn't know any of this. Marcus wanted her far from our world. She's not far anymore, I said, voice hollow. Not after tonight. No, he agreed. The Choi family has ears everywhere. Word will spread that you claimed her publicly. They'll dig. When they learn whose daughter she is, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Old debts, old enemies, the kind that never truly died. I stood, restlessness burning under my skin. I'll handle it. Daniel, his tone stopped me at the door. Be careful. That look in your eyes tonight. I've only seen it once before, on your father the night he met your mother. It doesn't end neatly. I left without answering. The drive home was a blur of city lights and gnawing torment. My penthouse greeted me with sterile silence. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Los Angeles, Italian marble floors, art on the walls that cost more than most people earned in a decade. Everything pristine, everything empty. I poured a whiskey but didn't drink it. Instead, I stood at the window, staring down at the distant glow of South Los Angeles where Maya was, at this moment, climbing 3 flights of stairs to a studio that smelled of mildew and despair. I pictured her locking a door that wouldn't keep out the cold, curling up on a thin mattress under a blanket that barely kept the chill away, stomach hollow because she'd given the last of her food money to cover a textbook. The contrast was obscene. My wealth could buy her an entire building of safety and warmth, and yet here I stood, paralyzed by the knowledge that everything I touched turned dark eventually. Guilt and longing twisted together until I couldn't tell them apart. I wanted to protect her from my world, but I had already dragged her into it. I wanted to keep her innocent, but the fire in my blood demanded I claim every part of her. I wanted to be the man who saved her, but the monster inside me whispered that I would only destroy her. Sleep never came that night. The next afternoon, I found myself driving the streets near her building, something I had never allowed myself before. Just to check, I told myself. just to be sure she'd made it home safely. I spotted her almost immediately. She was walking along a cracked sidewalk in South Los Angeles, grocery bag in one arm, nursing scrubs folded over the other. Even from a distance, I could see the exhaustion in her posture, the slight drag of her feet, the way she hunched against the December wind whipping down the street. Her coat was too thin, threadbare at the cuffs. She paused at a corner, waiting for the light, and I watched a man in a parked car lean out, catcalling something crude. She ignored him, head down, but her shoulders curled inward as if the words were physical blows. Rage flared so suddenly my vision tunneled. I pulled the car over before I could think, stepping out into the cold. The man saw me coming, black coat, tailored suit, the unmistakable walk of someone who owned the street, and thought better of whatever he'd planned. He drove off fast. Maya turned at the sound of my door closing. Her eyes widened in pure shock. "Mr. Han?" I stopped a respectful distance away, hands in my pockets to keep from reaching for her. "I was in the area," I lied. "You shouldn't walk alone here." She looked down at the grocery bag, cheap canned goods, a small loaf of bread, nothing fresh. Her cheeks colored with humiliation. "I'm used to it. The bus stop is 3 blocks. I'll be fine." "You won't." The words came out sharper than intended. I softened my voice. "Let me drive you." She hesitated, fear and confusion warring on her face. "Why are you doing this? I don't understand." I couldn't tell her the truth yet, not all of it, so I gave her the only piece I could. "Because someone who mattered to me once asked me to look out for you, and because no one should have to walk home in the cold carrying groceries that aren't enough to last the week." Her breath caught. Tears welled suddenly, but she blinked them back with fierce pride. "I don't need charity, Mr. Han." "It's not charity." My voice dropped, rough with everything I couldn't say. "It's a debt I'm repaying. Please, let me take you home." After a long moment, she nodded, small, defeated, but trusting in a way that broke something inside me. The drive was quiet. She sat pressed against the passenger door, staring out the window as downtown gave way to her neighborhood. When we reached her building, a rundown 4-story walk-up with bars on the lower windows and graffiti scarring the walls, she turned to me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." I wanted to tell her to pack a bag, to come with me right then, to let me move her somewhere safe and warm and filled with light. Instead, I only said, "Lock your door tonight." She climbed the stairs slowly, disappearing inside. I sat in the idling car long after her light came on in a 3rd-floor window, dim, flickering, the bulb probably ready to die. My phone buzzed. David. "Boss, Choi's people are asking questions about the girl from last night. They're digging." The storm inside me finally broke loose. They would never touch her. I would burn everything to the ground first. And in the silence that followed, one truth settled into my bones with terrifying clarity. I was already in love with Maya Jackson. Hopelessly, irreversibly, completely. And God help anyone who tried to take her from me. 2 days passed in a haze of meetings and shadowed dealings, but my mind never left her. David's reports confirmed what I already feared. Choi's men were asking questions in the streets, piecing together Maya's identity, whispering about old scores. I doubled security around my aunt's house without explanation, stationed discreet watchers near Maya's building, and still felt the guilt gnaw deeper, because every layer of protection I added pulled her further into the darkness I had sworn to keep her from. On the 3rd night, I could not stay away any longer. I drove myself, no driver, no guards, to the Koreatown rooftop lounge above one of my family's private clubs. The place was closed to the public tonight. I had given the staff the evening off. The city sprawled below like a glittering ocean, neon signs pulsing in Korean script, traffic lights threading red and green through the arteries of Los Angeles. The December wind carried a bite, but the heaters along the terrace kept the cold at bay. I stood at the railing, hands gripping cold metal, staring down at the lights until they blurred. My reflection in the glass doors behind me looked like a stranger, fair-skinned, sharp-suited, the face of a man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. But inside, everything was fracturing. The loneliness that had been my constant companion for years had transformed into something far more dangerous, a desperate, aching need centered entirely on one fragile young woman who deserved none of this chaos. My phone buzzed. A text from the watcher. "She's on her way up. Told her you requested a private check on your aunt's medication schedule. I had arranged it carefully, called the agency myself, insisted Maya come personally to review new prescriptions." A lie wrapped in legitimacy. I hated the deception, but I needed to see her, needed to warn her, needed, God help me, to be near her. The elevator chimed softly. She stepped out onto the terrace, clutching a small nursing bag, eyes wide as she took in the empty space and the endless city beyond. "Mr. Han?" Her voice was soft, timid, carrying across the quiet like a whisper of wind. She looked even thinner in the harsh rooftop lights, coat too thin against the chill, cheeks hollow from another day of skipped meals. The sight sent a fresh wave of torment through me. "Maya." I turned, keeping my distance so I would not frighten her. "Thank you for coming." She nodded, cautious, glancing around as if expecting others. "The agency said it was urgent."
"About Mrs. Park's new meds?"
Confusion flickered in her eyes, then unease. She hugged her arms to herself, shifting her weight. I gestured to the cushioned seating area near the heaters. "Please, sit. Warm yourself." She hesitated, then obeyed, perching on the edge of a chair as if ready to bolt. I sat opposite, leaving space, though every instinct screamed to close it. "There are no new meds," I admitted quietly. "I needed to speak with you privately." Her breath caught. Fear flashed across her face, raw, instinctive, followed by a wave of disorientation. She looked around again, realizing how alone we were, how high up, how far from help. Her hands trembled in her lap. "Mr. Han, I don't understand. If this is about the other night, I'm sorry if I caused trouble. I can find another assignment." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. I softened my voice. "You've done nothing wrong. This isn't about blame." She waited, eyes dark and wary, body tense. The wind tugged at loose strands of her hair, and I fought the urge to brush them away. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, choosing my words with care. "Your father, Marcus Jackson, he once worked for my family, as an accountant. 15 years ago, he uncovered something dangerous, information that saved lives, including mine." Her eyes widened in shock. The nursing bag slipped from her fingers to the floor with a soft thud. "My dad? He was just an accountant. He never talked about his old jobs. He said they were boring office work." "He protected you from the truth," I said gently. "He left that world behind to give you a better life. Before he passed, he contacted my uncle, asked us to watch over you if you ever came close to Los Angeles, if you ever needed help." Tears welled suddenly in her eyes. She blinked them back, but one escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. "He never told me." All those years struggling, the hospital bills, the funeral costs. He never said there was anyone who could. Her voice broke. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Guilt twisted inside me like a blade. "He wanted you far from this life, from the dangers." She looked up, confusion deepening into dread. "Dangers? Mr. Han, what kind of work did he do for your family?" I met her gaze steadily. "The kind that involves powerful people, rivals, old grudges." Her face paled. She stood abruptly, swaying as dizziness hit, emotional shock crashing through her fragile frame. I rose instantly, hand outstretched to steady her, but she stepped back, fear surging. "Please don't be afraid of me," I said, voice rough with everything I felt. "I arranged your assignment with my aunt to keep you close enough to protect, to honor his promise. But after the other night, after what happened in the banquet hall, word is spreading. There are people who might see you as leverage because of your father's past." She wrapped her arms around herself again, trembling now, not just from cold, but from the weight of revelations crashing down. "I'm nobody," she whispered, echoing her words from before. I have nothing. Why would anyone? You're not nobody. The words tore out of me, fierce and raw. Not to me. Silence fell, heavy and electric. The city lights shimmered below us like a distant dream. She stared at me, eyes searching my face for deception and finding none. Curiosity flickered beneath the fear, tentative, hopeful. I stepped closer, slowly, giving her space to retreat. She didn't. The wind whipped around us, carrying the distant hum of the city. "Maya," I said, voice low, every word weighted with the storm inside me. "These past weeks, watching you care for my aunt with such gentleness despite your own exhaustion, seeing you endure hardships no one should have to bear, it's awakened something in me I thought was dead. Duty brought you into my world, but it's no longer just duty." Her breath hitched. Shock widened her eyes, followed by deep confusion, then a rush of color to her cheeks. "I care for you," I confessed, the words scraping my throat raw. "More than care. I've tried to fight it, told myself I have no right, that I'm too deep in darkness to offer you anything good. But I can't lie anymore. Not to you." Tears spilled freely now. She swayed again, emotional numbness giving way to pain so visible it tore at my heart. "You don't know me," she whispered. "I'm just broken, poor, always one step from losing everything." "You're not broken." I closed the last distance, gently cupping her face with hands that had ended lives, yet now trembled with reverence. Her skin was cold beneath my palms. "You're the strongest person I've ever known, and I want to give you everything you've been denied: warmth, safety, a life without hunger or fear." She stared up at me, disoriented, tears falling faster. The contrast between us had never been sharper. My tailored coat against her threadbare one, my world of power and plenty against her years of scraping survival. "I'm terrified," she admitted in a broken whisper, "of all this, of you, but I felt you watching, felt something when you look at me, like I matter." "You do," I said fiercely, "more than anything." The moment stretched, fragile and electric. Then, slowly, carefully, as if she were made of glass, I lowered my head. Our first kiss was gentle, almost reverent. My lips brushed hers with infinite care, tasting salt from her tears, feeling her tremble against me. She froze for a heartbeat, shock rippling through her, then melted, hesitant, trusting, her hands rising to grip my coat as if anchoring herself against the storm of emotion. The world fell away. There was only her, soft, warm, real, in my arms. The guilt still raged, the fear that I would ruin her, but beneath it surged a love so overwhelming it eclipsed everything else. Fierce, protective, eternal. When we parted, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against hers. "This changes everything," I whispered, "but I'll protect you, always." She nodded, tears still falling, but a small, wondering smile touched her lips. In that moment on the rooftop, with the city lights bearing witness, I knew I would face any danger, any rival, any darkness, to keep her safe, to keep her mine. The morning after the rooftop, I woke before dawn in my penthouse bedroom, the city still dark beyond the windows. Sleep had been shallow, fractured by dreams of Maya's tears on my lips and the tremor in her body when she leaned into that kiss. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with a mixture of elation and terror. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I had tasted her trust, felt her softness yield to me, and now the need to protect her, to keep her, burned like a fever I could not shake. By 7 o'clock, I was dressed and pacing the marble floors, phone in hand, listening to David's overnight report. Choi's people were seen near her building twice last night. No direct approach, but they're watching. Word's definitely out. She's Marcus Jackson's daughter, and she's caught your attention. They're weighing options. The rage that rose in me was cold, precise. Triple the detail on her, quietly. No contact unless it's life or death. Already done, boss, but we can't keep her in that neighborhood much longer. It's too exposed. I ended the call and stared out at the slowly brightening skyline. He was right, and I knew what I had to do. I drove to South Los Angeles myself, no escort. The contrast between downtown's gleaming towers and her crumbling streets always struck me like a physical blow. But today it felt personal. Every pothole, every boarded window, every shivering figure huddled on a corner was an accusation against the world that had failed her. I parked outside her building and climbed the 3 flights of warped stairs. The hallway smelled of mildew and fried onions. Her door, number 307, was thin particle board with a lock that wouldn't stop a determined child. I knocked once, softly. Footsteps, a pause. Then the chain rattled and the door opened a crack. Maya's face appeared, eyes wide with shock. She wore an oversized sweatshirt that swallowed her frame, sleeves pushed up to reveal thin wrists. Her hair was pulled back in a tired ponytail, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Another sleepless night, another skipped meal. "Mr. Han?" Her voice was small, confused, laced with the automatic respect she couldn't quite shed. What are you doing here?" "I came for you," I said quietly. "Pack a bag. You're not staying here anymore." Fear flashed across her face. She opened the door wider but didn't step aside. "I can't just leave. I have shifts. Rent is due in 4 days. My classes." "I've handled it." I kept my tone gentle, though urgency thrummed beneath it. "Your landlord's been paid for the next year. The agency's been told you're on extended family leave. Your professors have been informed of a personal emergency. All excused." Her breath caught. Dizziness swayed her. She gripped the doorframe, eyes filling with tears born of overwhelm rather than gratitude. You can't just decide my life like that." "I'm not deciding it," I said, stepping closer but not entering without permission. "I'm keeping you alive. The people asking questions about you aren't patient, Maya. They won't knock politely." She stared at me, chest rising and falling too fast. Shock gave way to deep disorientation, the ground shifting beneath the only reality she had ever known. "This is insane," she whispered. "Yesterday I was worried about bus fare and whether the heat would work tonight. Now you're telling me dangerous people are watching me because of something my dad did 15 years ago?" "Yes," I met her gaze steadily, "and I won't let them near you." Tears spilled over. She wiped them away angrily, ashamed of the weakness. "I don't have anywhere else to go. I can't afford—" "You're coming with me." The words hung between us. Her eyes searched mine, finding the truth I could no longer hide. This wasn't just protection. It was possession, need, love that had already consumed me whole. She stepped back, a silent invitation. I entered the tiny studio, barely 300 square feet. A sagging mattress on the floor served as both bed and couch. A hot plate and mini fridge sat on a chipped counter. One small window looked out on a brick wall. The air was cold. The radiator clanked uselessly. On the wall, a single photo of her and her father, him smiling proudly, her maybe 10 years old, hung crookedly. The poverty here was raw, intimate, heartbreaking. Empty ramen packets in the trash, a jar with a few dollars in change, nursing textbooks stacked beside a library card. Every detail screamed of relentless struggle, of nights she had gone to bed hungry so she could buy soap or bus tokens or a single apple. My chest tightened until breathing hurt. Guilt and fury braided together. This was the life the woman I loved had endured while I lived in obscene luxury 20 miles away. Maya moved mechanically, pulling a worn duffel from under the bed. She packed in silence. A few changes of clothes, her nursing books, toiletries in a plastic grocery bag, the framed photo of her father. Her hands shook the entire time. I watched, helpless against the storm inside me. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg forgiveness for every night she had been cold while I slept in heated sheets. I wanted to carry her out of here and never let the world touch her again. When the bag was zipped, she turned to me, eyes red but steady. "I'm scared," she admitted in that soft, restrained voice that undid me every time. "But I trust you more than I should." Those words were a blade and a balm at once. The drive to downtown was quiet. She sat pressed against the passenger door, staring out at the passing city as if seeing it for the first time. When we entered the private elevator to my penthouse, she gripped the railing, dizziness returning as the floors climbed. The doors opened directly into the main living space, vast, light-filled, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Pacific in one direction and the sprawling city in the other. White marble floors gleamed. A grand kitchen of stainless steel and dark granite sat unused most days. Plush sectional sofas faced a fireplace I rarely lit. Everything immaculate, everything empty. Maya stepped out slowly, bag clutched to her chest, eyes huge. Shock rippled through her, then deep, painful disorientation. She turned in a slow circle, taking in the opulence that dwarfed her entire existence. This is yours?" Her voice cracked. "Yes." I set her bag down gently. "And now it's yours too, for as long as you need." She swayed. I caught her elbow before she fell, guiding her to the sofa. She sank into the cushions as if they might swallow her. I can't." Tears came again, silent and overwhelming. "It's too much." I knelt in front of her, careful not to crowd. "Nothing is too much for you, not after everything you've endured." She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the rupture inside her. The girl who had learned to expect nothing suddenly confronted with everything. Pain, wonder, fear, gratitude, all crashing together until she could barely breathe. I brushed a tear from her cheek with my thumb, the touch feather light. "Guest wing is down the hall. Your own bedroom, bathroom, everything you need. I'll stay on the opposite side. You're safe here. No one gets up without my approval." She nodded numbly, then whispered, "Why does it feel like I'm dreaming and about to wake up back on that cold floor?" "Because you've been treated unfairly for too long." My voice roughened with emotion, but not anymore. I showed her the guest suite, larger than her entire studio, with a king bed dressed in soft linens, an ensuite bath with heated floors and a soaking tub, a walk-in closet I had already stocked with essentials in her size. Simple things, warm sweaters, jeans, toiletries, thick socks. Nothing extravagant, but everything new and chosen with care. She stood in the doorway, clutching the frame, tears falling faster. "I can't pay for this." "You don't have to." I kept my distance in the hallway. "This isn't payment, it's refuge." That night, after she had showered and changed into one of the soft sweaters, sleeves too long, drowning her small frame, she emerged to find me in the kitchen preparing simple food. Rice, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, nothing fancy but warm and nourishing. She hovered uncertainly. "You cook?" "Sometimes." I slid a plate toward her. "Eat, please." She sat at the massive island, hands trembling as she picked up the fork. The first bite brought fresh tears. "It's hot," she whispered, as if that were a miracle. I turned away to hide the anguish on my face. While she ate in silence, I stood at the window, watching the city lights, the guilt and love at war inside me. Later, when she said goodnight in that timid, respectful voice and disappeared into her wing, I stood outside her closed door for a long time, listening to her quiet sobs through the wood. Sanctuary, I had called it, but I knew the truth. I had brought her into the heart of the storm, and I would stand between her and every shadow until my last breath. The first week in the penthouse passed like a dream wrapped in silence and unspoken thunder. Maya moved through the vast rooms like a ghost, bare feet on warm marble, eyes wide at every luxury she discovered. The rain shower that poured like summer heat, the refrigerator that hummed with food she had only seen in commercials, the bed so soft she sank into it and cried herself to sleep the first 3 nights because her body did not know how to accept comfort without suspicion. I gave her space. I stayed on my side of the apartment, worked late in the office, took calls in the underground garage so she would not overhear the darkness that paid for all this light. But every evening I cooked. Simple things at first, rice porridge with scallions, grilled salmon, Banchan I arranged with my own hands the way my mother taught me when I was a boy, who still believed in innocence. Maya ate slowly, carefully, as though expecting the plate to be snatched away. Each time she finished, tears welled in her eyes from the sheer relief of a full stomach, and I had to turn to the sink so she would not see the anguish carved into my face. On the 8th night, the storm finally broke. I found her in the living room at 2 in the morning, curled on the sectional in one of my shirts, white cotton swallowing her frame, knees drawn to her chest, staring out at the endless city lights. The glow painted silver across her cheekbones, sharp and fragile. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked softly from the doorway. She startled, then shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I think I'm back there, on that thin mattress, hearing gunshots down the block, wondering if the electricity will be cut before morning." Her voice was barely a whisper, raw from unshed tears. "Then I open them and I'm here, and it feels wrong, like I stole someone else's life." I crossed the room slowly, deliberately, and sat on the opposite end of the sectional, leaving oceans of space between us. "You didn't steal anything. You endured more than anyone should have to. This is reparation, Maya, long overdue." She turned to me then, eyes shimmering. "Reparation from who? From you? You didn't make me poor. You didn't make my dad sick, or the landlord raise rent every year, or the hospital send debt collectors to a dying man's bedside." "No," I said, voice rough. "But I have spent years building an empire on other people's fear while you starved 20 miles away. That makes me complicit." Silence stretched, heavy and aching. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. "I'm scared of you." The confession struck like a blade between the ribs. Not because I think you'll hurt me," she hurried, seeing the flinch I could not hide. "I'm scared because when you look at me, I feel seen, really seen, for the first time in my whole life, and I don't know what to do with that. Men like you don't see girls like me. They use us and forget us. But you moved me into your palace and cook for me and ask nothing. It's not normal, Daniel." Daniel, not Mr. Hahn. My name on her lips undid me completely. I moved then, slowly, deliberately, until I was kneeling in front of her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her bare legs. She didn't pull away. "Maya," I said, voice shaking with everything I had tried to bury. "Look at me." She did. Tears spilled freely now, tracing paths down cheeks still hollow from hunger. "I am not a good man," I began, the confession tearing itself out of me like shrapnel. "I have ordered things done in dark alleys that would make you sick. I have ended lives with a phone call. I have built this palace on blood and fear, and favors that can never be repaid. Every night I lie awake, counting the ghosts I created, wondering if there is any piece of me left that deserves redemption." Her breath hitched. Fear flickered, but beneath it, curiosity, compassion. She reached out, trembling fingers brushing my cheek as if checking I was real. "But then you walked into my world," I continued, voice breaking, carrying trays of tea with hands cracked from cold and cheap soap, smiling at my aunt even though your own stomach was empty. And something inside me that had been dead for 15 years started breathing again. I tried to tell myself it was duty, obligation to your father, but it was a lie. I took her hand, gently, reverently, and pressed it over my racing heart. "This is not duty, Maya. This is obsession. This is love so fierce it terrifies me. I want to put the entire world at your feet and burn anyone who ever made you cry. I want to feed you every day until the shadows under your eyes are only from sleep. I want to wake up to your face every morning and fall asleep to your breathing every night. I want to be the reason you never know hunger or cold or fear again." Her tears fell faster. Shock widened her eyes, then deep, aching wonder. "But I know who I am," I whispered, voice raw. "I know what I've done, and I know I have no right to ask you to love a monster. So I will wait. As long as it takes, I will court you properly, slowly, with respect, until you are certain. until you choose me freely, knowing every dark corner of my soul." She stared at me for an endless moment, chest heaving with silent sobs. Then, in that soft, restrained, timid voice that always broke me, "You're not a monster, Daniel. Monsters don't cook porridge for starving girls. Monsters don't cry because someone finally said their name." And then she leaned forward, hesitant, trembling, and kissed me. Not the careful, reverent kiss from the rooftop. This one was desperate, hungry, weeks of suppressed longing finally unleashed. Her thin fingers slid into my hair, pulling me closer. I groaned against her mouth, lifting her easily into my lap, cradling her like something sacred. We kissed until breathing became impossible, slow, deep, consuming. My hands mapped the fragile lines of her back, feeling every rib beneath the cotton shirt, every reminder of what she had suffered. Rage and tenderness warred inside me. I wanted to worship her and destroy everything that had ever hurt her in the same breath. When we finally broke apart, foreheads resting together, both shaking, she whispered against my lips, "I've wanted this since the first time you looked at me like I was precious." "You are," I rasped. "You are everything." She curled into my chest, small and trusting, and for the first time in years I felt something dangerously close to peace. But peace in my world never lasts. The next morning, David called. "Choi's underboss wants a sit-down, neutral ground, tomorrow night." He mentioned Maya by name. The rage returned, cold and lethal. I looked across the kitchen at Maya, standing at the counter in my shirt, hair tousled from sleep, carefully pouring coffee with hands that no longer shook from hunger, and made my decision. "They want to talk terms?" I said into the phone, voice calm, deadly. "Then they'll talk to both of us. She comes with me." David started to protest. I cut him off. "She is not a weakness to hide. She is the line they do not cross." I hung up and turned to her. Tomorrow we would step into the fire together, and I would teach the world what happened when someone threatened the woman I loved. The call came at dawn on December 23, 2025, just as the first pale light crept over the Los Angeles skyline. I was already awake, had been for hours, standing at the penthouse window with a cooling cup of coffee in hand, watching the city stir below. Maya slept soundly in her room down the hall. I had checked twice in the night, unable to shake the need to ensure she was safe, breathing, mine. The memory of her kiss lingered like a brand on my lips, fueling a fire that both warmed and scorched me. My phone vibrated on the marble counter. David's name flashed on the screen. "Boss," he said without preamble, voice tight. "We've got confirmation. Choi's crew ran her prints last night. They know who she is. Marcus Jackson's daughter. The accountant who burned them 15 years ago. They're calling it leverage. Old debts, new opportunities." The coffee cup cracked in my grip. Hot liquid spilled over my fingers, but I felt nothing. Rage, cold, lethal, all-consuming, flooded every vein. Leverage. The word echoed like a death sentence. They saw her as a pawn, a way to settle scores with a ghost. My Maya, who had already suffered enough indignities, nights shivering under thin blankets in a freezing studio, days skipping meals to afford textbooks, humiliation at food banks where clerks looked through her like she was invisible. And now this? Rivals circling like vultures because of her father's courage. Guilt slammed into me next, sharper than any blade. I had brought her here to protect her, but all I had done was paint a target on her back. My world, my darkness, had tainted her light. How could I love her so fiercely and still drag her into this abyss? "Double the detail," I ordered, voice flat, deadly calm. "No one gets within a block of this building. And get me everything on Choi's movements. Every call, every meeting." David hesitated. "There's more. They're spreading word on the street, testing loyalties, saying the Han family's gone soft, hiding behind a girl from South LA." Soft. The accusation burned. I slammed the phone down, knuckles white.
Soft? I would show them what softness looked like when I tore their empire apart brick by brick.
But beneath the fury, remorse gnawed relentlessly. Maya deserved peace, not this war. She had trusted me, leaned into my arms last night with a vulnerability that shattered me. How could I tell her? How could I explain that the safety I promised was already cracking? I paced the living room until the sun rose fully, casting golden light across the marble floors. When Maya emerged an hour later, hair tousled, wearing one of my sweaters that hung to her knees like a dress, my heart clenched. She looked rested for the first time, cheeks fuller from a week of regular meals, but her eyes still held shadows of old fears. "Morning," she said softly, voice timid and respectful, as if she still could not believe this was her reality. She padded barefoot to the kitchen island, perching on a stool. "You're up early." I forced a smile, crossing to pour her coffee, black with 2 sugars the way she liked it now that she could afford to indulge. "Couldn't sleep, thinking." "About last night?" A blush colored her cheeks. Curiosity flickered in her eyes, mixed with that cautious wonder she always wore around me. "About you," I admitted, handing her the mug. Our fingers brushed, sending sparks through me. "Always about you." She sipped slowly, watching me over the rim, then hesitant. "Daniel, what happens now? With us? With everything?" The question hung between us, fragile and loaded. I wanted to promise her the world, vow that no shadow would ever touch her again. But lies had no place here, not with her. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I stepped into the hallway to take it, keeping my voice low. "Han," a smooth voice said, Victor Choi himself. "We need to talk about the girl, your new interest." Rage boiled over. "You don't say her name, ever," he chuckled, low and mocking. "Touchy? Meet me tonight, neutral ground. Wilshire Grand Rooftop Lounge, 8 o'clock. Come alone, or we start collecting on old debts, starting with her." The line went dead. I gripped the phone until it groaned. They knew exactly where to strike. My penthouse, my sanctuary. Maya. The emotional rupture hit like a tidal wave. Terror for her safety, fury at their audacity, remorse that my love had endangered her. I had sworn to protect her, and already they were closing in. Back in the kitchen, Maya watched me with growing unease. "What is it?" I crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into my arms. She stiffened at first, old habits of distrust from a lifetime of betrayal, then melted against me, small and trusting. "We have a problem," I said against her hair. "The rivals, they know about you, about your father. They want to use you against me." She pulled back, eyes wide with shock. Dread washed over her face, followed by deep confusion. "Use me? But I'm nobody. I have nothing they could want." "You have me," I said fiercely. "That's enough." Tears welled. She swayed, dizziness hitting as the reality crashed down. "This is because of me? Because you're protecting me?" "No." I cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. "This is because of them. Because they're monsters who prey on the vulnerable. Like they preyed on you your whole life, with hunger, with cold, with systems that ground you down." She broke then, sobbing against my chest, body shaking with the weight of it all. The humiliation of her past poured out in waves, memories of eviction notices taped to her door while she was at school, nights scavenging dumpsters for food when money ran out mid-month, the shame of free clinic lines where nurses judged her threadbare clothes. All while I had lived in luxury, oblivious. Guilt tore through me. I held her tighter, whispering apologies into her hair. "I should have found you sooner, should have spared you every moment of pain." She looked up, eyes red but fierce. "You did find me, and now you're keeping me safe. That's more than anyone's ever done." Her words were a lifeline in the storm. I kissed her then, slow, tender, pouring every ounce of my love into it. She kissed back with desperate need, fingers clutching my shirt as if I might vanish. When we parted, breathless, I made my vow. Tonight I end this, I meet them, make it clear you're untouchable. Fear flashed in her eyes. "Alone? Daniel, no! You'll be here, safe, guarded by 20 men." She shook her head, voice trembling but resolute. I go with you. If this is about me, I face it too. Pride swelled in my chest, fierce, overwhelming. This girl, who had been crushed by life's cruelties, now stood tall against the storm. But terror gripped me too, the thought of her in their sights. We spent the day preparing. I taught her the basics, how to read a room, when to speak, when to stay silent. She absorbed it all with quiet intensity, her curiosity burning bright beneath the fear. That evening, as we dressed, her in a simple black dress that hugged her newly filled curves, me in my tailored suit, we shared a quiet moment in the bedroom. She stood before the mirror, touching the jade pendant I had given her yesterday, a magpie, symbol of joy and partnership in Korean tradition. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful." I came up behind her, arms encircling her waist. Our reflections stared back, me towering and protective, her small but unbreakable. "I love you," she said suddenly, voice soft and reverent. The words shattered me. Joy exploded in my chest, chasing away shadows. "I love you too, Maya, more than anything." We kissed, deep, passionate, a promise sealed in fire. The drive to Wilshire Grand was tense. My security flanked us, but I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way I never had before. Maya's hand in mine trembled, but her chin stayed high. The rooftop lounge was empty, save for Victor Choi and two of his men, seated at a central table overlooking the glittering city. Neutral ground, as promised. Choi stood as we approached, eyes narrowing at Maya. The famous Miss Jackson, or should I say, leverage. I stepped in front of her instinctively. You look at her again, and this meeting ends in pieces. Tension crackled like electricity. Choi's men shifted, hands near jackets. My own security tensed behind us. Choi smiled thinly. "Bold, Han. Bringing her here shows weakness." Maya spoke then, voice steady despite her fear. "I'm not leverage, I'm his. And if you touch me, you touch him. And everything he stands for." Choi's eyebrows rose. Respect flickered in his eyes, grudging but real. The negotiation began, words sharp as knives, threats veiled in civility. Choi demanded reparations for old losses. I countered with steel, offering peace if they backed off. But midway through, chaos erupted. A side door burst open. 3 masked men, Choi's hidden muscle, rushed in. "Grab the girl!" Time slowed. I shoved Maya behind me, drawing my concealed pistol. Shouts filled the air. My security clashed with the intruders in a blur of motion. No shots fired, but fists flew, bodies slammed against tables. One man broke through, lunging for Maya. She screamed, stumbling back. I tackled him mid-stride, slamming him to the ground. We grappled, brutal, desperate. His elbow cracked my jaw, pain exploded. But I pinned him, knee to throat. "Enough," Choi roared. The fight stopped as suddenly as it began. The intruders were subdued, revealed as rogue elements, not Choi's men at all, but opportunists trying to force a war. Choi looked shaken. This wasn't me. I stood, blood trickling from my lip, pulling Maya into my arms. She clung to me, shaking violently, tears streaming. "You're safe," I whispered, holding her tight. "I've got you." Back in the penthouse hours later, after statements to my private security, we collapsed on the sofa. Maya curled against me, still trembling. "I was so scared," she admitted, voice small, "but you protected me, always." I kissed her forehead, the emotional peak crashing over me, relief, love, terror, all at once. She looked up, eyes shining. "I love you more than I thought possible." In that moment, with rivals thwarted and our bond unbreakable, I knew this love was worth every shadow. But the war was far from over, and I would face hell itself to keep her safe. The morning after the rooftop skirmish, I woke to the sound of Maya crying in the shower. I sat up in bed, heart slamming against my ribs, every instinct screaming to rush to her. But I forced myself to wait outside the bathroom door, back pressed to the wall, fists clenched so tightly my nails drew blood. The water ran for a long time, masking her sobs, but I heard them anyway, raw, broken sounds that tore through me like shrapnel. When the door finally opened, steam billowed out around her small frame, wrapped in a towel too large for her. Her eyes were swollen, skin blotched from crying. She startled when she saw me waiting. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice hoarse and timid. "I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." I stepped forward slowly, giving her space to retreat. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but fresh tears spilled. "Just scared. Last night felt like a dream, like everything bad caught up again. Those men, they wanted to take me, because of who my dad was, because of me." The self-blame in her words gutted me. I pulled her gently into my arms, careful, reverent. She buried her face against my chest and cried harder, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I held her through it, murmuring meaningless comforts, feeling every tear soak into my shirt like acid on my soul. Guilt roared inside me. I had promised safety, and in one night, I had nearly lost her. My empire, my power, none of it had prevented those men from reaching for her. Remorse twisted with rage. Rage at the rogue attackers, rage at Choi for the instability that allowed it, rage at myself for dragging her deeper into this world. When the storm finally passed, she pulled back, wiping her face with the heel of her hand. "I don't want to be a burden. Maybe I should go back." "No." The word came out fierce, almost a growl. I softened it immediately. "You're not going anywhere. You're not a burden. You're the reason I breathe now." Her eyes searched mine, confusion and fear giving way to cautious wonder. "How can you say that? After last night?" "Because last night showed me something." I cupped her damp cheek. "You stood there, terrified, and still spoke up. You faced men who wanted to hurt you and didn't break. You're stronger than any of us, Maya." A shaky breath escaped her. She leaned into my touch, closing her eyes. "I don't feel strong. I feel like the same scared girl who used to hide under the covers when the power got shut off." "You're not that girl anymore." I kissed her forehead, lingering. "And I won't let anyone make you feel powerless again." That afternoon, I began her lessons. We sat in my office, dark wood panels, floor-to-ceiling books on strategy and history, a view of the city that reminded everyone who entered whose kingdom this was. Maya perched on the leather sofa, knees together, hands folded in her lap like a student afraid of failing. I paced slowly, choosing my words with care. This world runs on perception and respect. Direct confrontation is rare because it forces public loss of face. Most conflicts are resolved through intermediaries, subtle pressure, carefully worded messages. She listened intently, eyes tracking me, absorbing every word. Curiosity burned bright beneath the lingering fear. "Tomorrow night," I continued, "we meet Victor Choi again. Properly this time, neutral ground, private room at a Koreatown restaurant I control, but he trusts. He'll probe for weakness, test our resolve, try to find leverage." Her breath hitched. Leverage, me. Yes, I stopped in front of her, kneeling so we were eye level. "Which is why you're coming with me." Shock widened her eyes. "Daniel, no, after last night." Exactly after last night. I took her hands, cold, trembling. "Hiding you makes you look like a secret, a vulnerability. Bringing you shows strength, shows you're under my protection fully. That any move against you is a move against me personally and the entire Han family." She swayed, dizziness hitting as the implications sank in. "I'm not ready. I don't know how to. You don't have to be ready." I squeezed her hands gently. "You just have to be you. Honest, brave. The rest I'll handle." Tears welled again, but this time they were different, born of overwhelm rather than despair. "You really believe in me that much?" "More than I believe in anything else." We spent the rest of the day in quiet preparation. I walked her through etiquette, how to greet with a slight bow of respect but never deference, how to sit with posture that commanded attention without arrogance, how to listen more than speak. She practiced responses in the mirror, soft voice, steady gaze, while I watched, pride swelling in my chest. Between lessons, tender moments slipped in. I fed her lunch myself, fresh bibimbap with perfectly fried eggs, watching her eat with the same wonder she had the first night. When she finished, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for teaching me instead of hiding me." The simple gratitude undid me. I brought her fingers to my lips, kissing each one.
You deserve to stand beside me, Maya, not behind.
That evening, we stood on the balcony watching the sunset paint the city gold. She leaned against the railing, wind tugging her hair. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, chin resting on her head. "Tell me something real," she said quietly. "Not about power or rivals, just you." I hesitated. Vulnerability was not a language I spoke easily. But for her, I tried. "I used to dream of being a teacher," I admitted. "Literature, analyzing stories, helping kids find meaning in words." My father laughed when I mentioned it, said the family needed a soldier, not a scholar. By 17, I had made my first collection, Money Owed, Fear Enforced. The dream died quietly. She turned in my arms, eyes soft with empathy. "Do you regret it?" Some days, my voice roughened, but regret is a luxury I can't afford. Until you. You make me wonder what kind of man I could have been. What kind I still might be. Tears shimmered in her eyes. She rose on her toes and kissed me, slow, deep, full of unspoken promises. We stayed there long after the sun vanished, wrapped in each other, the city lights flickering on below like stars we could almost touch. The next day brought a cruel reminder of how fragile our peace was. Maya received a call from her old building manager. Eviction proceedings had started in her absence, her few remaining belongings boxed and stored. Worse, her community college financial aid had been frozen pending verification of residency. Bureaucratic cruelty, but time suspiciously close to Choi's probing. She sat at the kitchen island staring at the phone, face pale, body trembling with the old familiar dread. Everything I worked for, gone, just like that. I took the phone from her limp hand, rage simmering. Irrational injustice, the kind that had crushed her for years, was striking again.
While I could buy buildings, influence officials, she had fought tooth and nail for scraps and still lost them to red tape. I made calls, quiet ones. By evening, her aid was restored, her belongings retrieved and delivered to the penthouse. But the damage lingered in her eyes, the numbness, the pain of being reminded how easily the world could strip her bare. That night she curled against me on the sofa, voice small. "Sometimes I feel like I don't belong here. Like any moment someone will realize I'm just the poor girl from South LA and take it all away." I held her tighter. "No one takes you from me, ever." She looked up, eyes fierce despite the tears. "Then teach me how to fight back, not with fear, with strength." Pride and love surged through me. This woman, broken by poverty, hunted by rivals, was choosing to rise. Tomorrow we would face Choi together, and I would show the world exactly what happened when someone threatened the heart of Daniel Han. December 24th, 2025, the night of the meeting. We arrived at the private room above the Koreatown restaurant just after 8. The place was one of mine on paper, neutral enough for Choi to accept, secure enough for my men to control every entrance and exit. Red lanterns glowed softly along the hallway, casting warm light over dark wood and silk screens. The air smelled of grilled meat and incense, familiar scents that usually calmed me. Tonight, they did nothing. Maya walked beside me, hand tucked into the crook of my arm. She wore the deep emerald dress I had chosen for her, simple silk that skimmed her newly softened curves, elegant without flash. The jade magpie pendant rested at her throat, catching the light with every breath. She looked beautiful, composed, but I felt the tremor in her fingers, the rapid beat of her pulse beneath my palm. Inside, my heart was a war zone. Pride in her courage battled terror that I was leading her into danger. Guilt screamed that I should have locked her in the penthouse with 50 guards. Love, fierce, consuming, absolute, demanded I let her stand tall. Every step echoed with the memory of her past. Nights she had walked these same Koreatown streets hungry, head down, avoiding eyes that judged her worn shoes and empty pockets. Now she walked them on my arm, and the contrast tore at me. We entered the private dining room. Victor Choi waited at the long lacquered table, flanked by 2 lieutenants. He rose as we approached, eyes flicking over Maya with calculated interest. "Daniel Han," he greeted, voice smooth. "And Miss Jackson." Bold choice, bringing her. I guided Maya to her seat beside mine, my hand lingering at the small of her back, possessive, protective. "She belongs here." Choi's smile was thin. Belongs. Strong word for a girl whose father cost my family dearly. Maya stiffened. I felt it like a knife in my own ribs. Rage flared, cold, precise, but I kept my expression neutral.
"Old debts," I said calmly. "We're here to settle them cleanly." Waiters appeared with tea and appetizers no one touched. The room's tension was thick enough to choke on. Choi leaned forward, addressing Maya directly. "Your father, Marcus, he was brilliant with numbers, less brilliant with loyalty. Men went to prison, operations collapsed, millions lost. You understand why some might see his daughter's sudden rise as opportunity?" The barb struck deep. I saw it hit her. The old shame of poverty, the humiliation of being judged for her father's choices, the fear that she was still just a liability. Her hands clenched in her lap beneath the table. I covered them with mine, squeezing gently. Before I could respond, Maya spoke. Her voice was soft, steady, but carried the weight of every hardship she had endured. "I understand my father made choices 20 years ago that hurt your family. I also understand I'm not him.
Punishing me for decisions I had no part in violates every code of honor this world claims to live by." Silence fell. Choi's eyebrows rose. His lieutenants shifted, surprised. Maya continued, chin lifted. "My father left this life to give me something better. Daniel is honoring that by keeping me safe. If you're truly a man of honor, you'll respect both those things." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Pride exploded in my chest, fierce, overwhelming. This woman, who had once scavenged for food in dumpsters, who had cried herself to sleep on cold floors, was facing a mafia boss with unflinching grace. Choi studied her for a long moment, then laughed, low, genuine. "You've got fire, girl. I see why he's risking alliances over you." He turned to me. "Worth starting a war over old grudges." I met his gaze, voice steel. "Try it. Find out what war looks like when you touch what's mine." The lieutenants exchanged glances. One shook his head slightly. "Not worth it, boss." Beef was with the father. "Girl's right. Going after her makes us look petty." The other nodded. "Picking a fight with Han over a woman? Weak move." Choi considered, then inclined his head. "Very well. She's under your protection. We respect that." He extended his hand across the table. "But if she steps into business that concerns us, this courtesy ends." I shook it, firm, final. "She won't. You have my word." He turned to Maya. "You've got spine. Don't let it burn you." We rose. The meeting ended as cleanly as it had begun. In the hallway outside, adrenaline crashed over me. I pulled Maya into a shadowed alcove, pressing her against the wall, kissing her hard, celebratory, possessive, reverent. She kissed back with equal fervor, hands fisting my jacket, body arching into mine. "You were magnificent," I whispered against her lips. "Perfect." She laughed, shaky, giddy with relief. "I was terrified." "But you didn't show it." I cupped her face. "You earned his respect." Ended this without a drop of blood. Tears of relief spilled down her cheeks. "I kept thinking of everything you taught me, of how you believe in me." "Because I do." I kissed her again, softer, more than anything. The drive home was electric with triumph. Maya leaned against me in the back seat, head on my shoulder, fingers interlaced with mine. For the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest lightened. Back in the penthouse, we stood by the windows watching snow begin to fall.
rare for Los Angeles, magical against the city lights. "No going back now," she said quietly, echoing words I had once spoken to her. "I'm part of this world." I turned her to face me. "Having second thoughts?" "Not even one," she smiled through tears. "Tonight was terrifying and exhilarating. I wouldn't trade it, not if it means standing with you." I lifted her easily, carrying her to the bedroom. We undressed slowly, reverently, every touch a celebration, every kiss a promise. When I laid her on the bed, moonlight silvering her skin, I paused, overwhelmed. "You're everything," I whispered, voice breaking. She pulled me down to her. "Then love me like I am." We came together slowly at first, tender, exploratory, then with rising urgency. Weeks of restraint shattered. Her gasps filled the room, my name on her lips like prayer. I moved with careful intensity, worshiping every inch of her, erasing every memory of cold and hunger with heat and devotion. Afterward, tangled in sheets, sweat cooling on our skin, I held her close. "I love you," I said quietly. Completely, irrevocably. She traced my face with trembling fingers. "I love you too." I tried to fight it, told myself it was gratitude or safety or anything else. But it's love. Real, terrifying, beautiful love. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, hearts beating in sync. The next morning brought confirmation from David. Word was spreading. Choi had backed down. Maya's status was established, recognized as under Han protection. Other families would think twice before moving against her. Practically, it meant freedom. She could return to classes if she wished, walk the streets without fear. But more than that, it meant she had claimed her place beside me. Over breakfast, she asked, "What now? Do I go back to being the quiet aide?" I pulled her onto my lap. "You can be anything, continue nursing, or take a role in the legitimate side, community outreach, using your empathy to help people the way you always wanted." She considered, eyes bright. "I want both, studies and something that matters here, with you." Pride swelled again. "Then that's what you'll have." As snow continued to fall outside, soft, silent, covering the city in white, we sat together planning a future neither of us had dared imagine weeks ago. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. And in her courage, she had redeemed a piece of me I thought lost forever. The snow had stopped falling by the time we left the restaurant, but the night air still bit through our coats. Maya's hand stayed in mine as we walked toward the waiting SUV, security flanking us at a discreet distance. Relief hummed through me like a low current. Choi had backed down, the threat neutralized, Maya's status secured. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe we might have a future unshadowed by old grudges. She leaned into me, cheek against my shoulder. "I can't believe it's over," she whispered. I stood there and they listened. I kissed her temple. "Because you were magnificent." We reached the SUV. Park opened the rear door. Maya slid in first, me following close behind. The door closed with a soft click. Then the world exploded. A black van screeched around the corner from the alley, headlights blinding. Tires squealed. Doors flew open. 3 masked men poured out, gloved hands, no weapons visible, but intent clear. They moved fast, coordinated. "Grab the girl," one shouted. Time fractured. I shoved Maya behind me, drawing my pistol in one fluid motion. "Stay down." Security reacted instantly. 2 of my men intercepted the first attacker, bodies colliding in a tangle of limbs and grunts. Fists connected, not bullets. No shots fired. Choi's truce held, but these men were not his. They were opportunists, rogues, or worse, someone who had seen a chance to force a war. Maya screamed, a sharp, terrified sound that pierced me deeper than any blade. One man broke through my line, lunging for the open door. I slammed my body into his, driving him back against the van. We grappled, his elbow cracked my cheekbone, pain blooming hot and bright. I returned the blow, knee to his gut, hearing the air rush from his lungs. Another attacker grabbed Maya's arm. She fought, wild, desperate, nails raking his wrist. Let go. Rage detonated inside me. I twisted free of my opponent, lunged across the seat, and yanked her back by the waist. The man's grip broke. He stumbled. I slammed the door shut, locking it. "Drive!" I roared at Park. The SUV lurched forward, tires spinning on wet pavement. The attackers fell back, but one managed to smash a fist against the window before we pulled away. Glass cracked but held. Maya curled against me, shaking violently. They almost... I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her onto my lap, shielding her with my body. "You're safe. I've got you." She buried her face in my neck, sobs muffled against my skin. Adrenaline crashed through me, relief warring with terror. I had almost lost her, again. The guilt was immediate, crushing. I had promised her safety, and in the space of seconds, the world had tried to take her from me. The drive back was chaos. My phone rang non-stop. David, security, Choi himself denying involvement. I ignored it all, holding Maya as she trembled. When we reached the penthouse, I carried her inside, straight to the bedroom. She clung to me like a lifeline. In the quiet of the room, she finally looked up, eyes red and swollen. I thought they were going to take me. Like before. Like when the landlord locked us out and I had nowhere to go. The words gutted me. I had seen the eviction notices in her files, cold, bureaucratic cruelty that had left her on the street for days. Now this. The contrast was obscene. My fortress of steel and glass. Her history of cardboard boxes and cold nights under bridges. I sat on the edge of the bed, pulling her into my lap again. "Never again," I vowed, voice rough. "No one touches you, ever." She nodded, but fresh tears fell. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I wasn't here..." "Stop," I cupped her face. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. I would burn this city down before I let anything happen to you." She searched my eyes, finding the truth there. Slowly, she leaned in and kissed me, soft at first, then desperate, as if she needed to feel alive. I kissed her back with equal need, hands gentle on her back, careful of the bruises forming from the struggle. We undressed slowly, reverently. Her skin was cold from shock. I warmed it with my hands, my lips, worshipping every inch. When I entered her, it was slow, careful, every movement a promise. She gasped my name, fingers digging into my shoulders, anchoring herself to me. Afterward, we lay tangled, her head on my chest, listening to my heartbeat slow. "I love you," she whispered into the dark. "Even if it scares me." "I love you too," my voice cracked, more than I knew was possible. Sleep came fitfully. I held her through the night, watching shadows play on the ceiling, guilt and love warring inside me. I had almost lost her. The thought was unbearable. The next morning brought confirmation. The attackers were disgruntled low-level players from Choi's periphery, acting without orders. Choi had already disavowed them, sent them into hiding. The truce held, but the message was clear. Maya was a flashpoint. Anyone who touched her would ignite war. I sat at the kitchen island, watching Maya sleep through the open bedroom door, and made a decision. She would never be vulnerable again. I would teach her everything: how to read a room, how to spot danger, how to defend herself without violence. She would be my equal in this world, not a protected secret. When she woke, she came to me in my shirt, hair mussed, eyes still shadowed from the night before. She climbed onto my lap without a word, curling against me. "I want to learn," she said quietly, "everything. How to be strong here, with you." Pride swelled, fierce and tender. "Then we start today." The days that followed were a blur of lessons and quiet moments. I taught her self-defense in the gym, basic holds, how to break grips, how to use leverage. She was quick, determined, driven by the memory of hands reaching for her. Between sessions, tenderness bloomed. I cooked her favorite meals, comfort food from her childhood, soul food mixed with Korean banchan. She ate with growing appetite, cheeks filling out, strength returning. One evening, as snow fell again outside, she stood at the window, watching the city lights. I came up behind her, arms around her waist. "Do you ever regret bringing me here?" she asked softly. "Never." I kissed her neck. "You're my redemption, Maya. Every day with you reminds me there's something worth saving." She turned in my arms, eyes shining. "Then let's save each other." We kissed, slow, deep, full of promise. The ambush had shaken us, but it had also forged us stronger. We were no longer protector and protected. We were partners. And in that partnership, I found the peace I had thought forever lost. The ambush had shattered our fragile peace, but it had also lit a fire in Maya. She trained with me every day. Self-defense in the gym, reading rooms during meetings, learning the subtle language of power that kept empires standing. Her strength grew visibly, body filling out from consistent meals, eyes sharpening with confidence, voice losing its timid edge when she spoke to my men. I watched her transform and felt both pride and terror. Pride in the woman she was becoming, my equal, my partner. Terror that the world would still try to take her from me. On the morning of December 28, 2025, the call came. David's voice was tight. "Boss, they've got her. The rogues from the ambush. They hit her car on the way to campus, took her, left the driver unconscious. They want to meet. Warehouse District, downtown, tonight." The phone slipped from my hand. The world narrowed to a single point of agony. Maya. Gone. Taken. Guilt crashed over me like a tidal wave. I had let her go to class, insisted on normalcy, on giving her back pieces of her old life. I had believed the truce held, that Choi's word meant something. I had failed her. Rage followed, white-hot, blinding. I would tear them apart, every one. But beneath it, terror clawed at my chest. Images flooded me. Maya bound in some cold warehouse, remembering nights on the street when no one came for her, believing I had abandoned her too. The thought of her fear, her pain, it was unbearable. I mobilized everything. Teams assembled, weapons checked, plans drawn. But inside, I was unraveling. The man who commanded fear in boardrooms and back alleys was reduced to a trembling wreck at the idea of losing her. David tried to stop me. "Boss, you can't go in alone. It's suicide." I looked at him, eyes dead. "If they hurt her, there won't be enough left of them for suicide." He stepped aside. The warehouse district was a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted shipping containers, shadows thick under flickering streetlights. I drove myself, no backup visible as demanded. But my men were ghosts in the dark, positioned for the signal. I walked into the designated building alone, hands visible, heart pounding. The air smelled of oil and decay. Dim bulbs swung overhead, casting long shadows. They waited in the center, 4 men, masked, surrounding Maya. She was tied to a chair, wrist bound behind her, mouth gagged with duct tape. Bruises bloomed on her cheek and arms, fresh, angry. Her eyes were wide with terror, but when she saw me, relief flooded them, followed by tears. Rage detonated. I took a step forward. "Easy," the leader said, pressing a knife to her throat. "One move, she bleeds." Maya whimpered, body trembling. The sound tore through me. "What do you want?" My voice was calm, lethal. "Money, territory, and a message to Choi that we're done taking scraps." I laughed, cold, bitter. "You think kidnapping my woman gets you that?" The leader shrugged. "Gets your attention." I moved then, faster than they expected. Years of training, of surviving this world. I lunged low, tackling the nearest man, disarming him in a blur. Chaos erupted, fists flew, bodies slammed against concrete. I fought like a man possessed, every blow fueled by love and terror. One man swung a pipe. I dodged, countered with an elbow to his throat. He dropped. But the leader grabbed Maya, knife pressing harder. A thin line of blood appeared on her neck. "Stop," he shouted, "or she dies." I froze, chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut on my forehead. Maya's eyes met mine, pleading, trusting. She shook her head slightly, as if to say, "Don't risk it." But I couldn't lose her. In that moment, something shifted. The guilt, the rage, the love, It all crystallized into clarity. I would die for her, gladly. I raised my hands slowly. Let her go. Take me instead.
The leader hesitated. Greed flickered.
Then my signal, a low whistle from outside. My men breached. The fight turned. My team overwhelmed them, precise, controlled. No shots, just takedowns. The leader lunged at me with the knife. I sidestepped, but not fast enough. The blade sliced deep into my side. Pain exploded, hot, blinding. I staggered, but stayed on my feet, tackling him. We hit the ground hard. I pinned him, fist connecting until he went limp. Maya screamed behind her gag. I crawled to her, blood soaking my shirt, hands shaking as I cut her bonds. She threw herself into my arms, sobbing. "Daniel, you're hurt. Oh God." I held her tight, pain secondary to the relief of feeling her alive. "I'm okay. You're safe." My men secured the attackers. Sirens wailed in the distance, anonymous tip to police, evidence planted to tie them to other crimes. They would vanish into the system. I collapsed then, vision blurring. Maya's face swam above me, tears streaming. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please." Darkness pulled, but I fought it. "Love you," I whispered. Then, nothing. I woke in a private clinic, my doctor, no records. Stitches in my side, IV dripping painkillers. Maya sat beside the bed, holding my hand, eyes red from crying. When I stirred, she gasped, "Daniel." I managed a weak smile. "Told you, I'd protect you." She burst into fresh tears, leaning over to kiss my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. "You almost died, for me." "Worth it." My voice was rough. "Every time." She climbed carefully onto the bed, curling against my good side. "I was so scared. When they took me, I thought about all the times no one came. But you did. You always do." Guilt twisted again, even through the haze of drugs. "I should have kept you closer. Should have." "Stop." She pressed a finger to my lips. "You gave me strength. I fought back because of you." We lay in silence, her warmth anchoring me. The pain in my side was nothing compared to the ache in my heart, the overwhelming love that had nearly cost me everything. Days of recovery followed. Maya nursed me with fierce tenderness, changing bandages, feeding me broth, reading to me from books she had always wanted but could never afford. Her touch healed more than medicine. One night, as painkillers wore off and vulnerability crested, I confessed. "I've killed men," I whispered into the dark. "Ordered things I can't undo. I thought I was beyond saving. Then you came, and I realized I would do anything, become anything, to be worthy of you." She kissed my scarred knuckles. "You already are. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." Tears pricked my eyes, rare, humiliating, but real. In her arms, bandaged and weak, I found redemption. The wound healed slowly, but our bond grew unbreakable. She moved through my world with new confidence, attending meetings, offering insights born of her empathy for the vulnerable. My men respected her. Even Uncle nodded approval. The rescue had nearly broken us. Instead, it forged us into something eternal. And in the quiet moments, holding her as she slept, I knew she was my salvation. I would spend the rest of my life proving I was hers. The knife wound took 3 weeks to close properly, but the scar it left was nothing compared to the one carved into my soul that night in the warehouse. Every time I looked at Maya, I saw her bound to that chair, blood on her neck, terror in her eyes. The memory haunted me, waking me in the night, sweat-soaked, heart racing, reaching for her to be sure she was real, safe, breathing beside me. She nursed me with a devotion that humbled me to my knees, changed bandages with gentle hands that had once been cracked from cold and cheap soap, fed me soup when pain made movement difficult, read to me from nursing textbooks or old poetry books she found in my library, her soft voice washing over me like balm. And when nightmares pulled me under, she held me, whispering, "I'm here. You saved me. We're safe. But I was not safe, not from the guilt, not from the knowledge that my love had nearly killed her. Every day I healed physically, the emotional rupture deepened. I had built an empire on fear and control, yet I could not control the one thing that mattered most, keeping her from harm. One afternoon, as January lights slanted through the penthouse windows, Maya sat cross-legged on the bed beside me, changing the dressing on my side. Her touch was careful, reverent, but her eyes held shadows. "I keep dreaming about it," she admitted quietly, voice small and restrained. "The warehouse, the cold concrete, the way they looked at me, like I was nothing again, like all the years of being invisible, hungry, cold, it all came back." The words struck like blows. I caught her hand, pressing it to my lips. "I'm sorry. God, Maya, I'm so sorry." She shook her head, tears welling. "It wasn't your fault. You came for me. You bled for me." Her voice cracked. "No one's ever done that. Not my dad when he was sick. Not the system that let us fall through every crack. You chose me, over everything." Tears pricked my own eyes. Rare, shameful, but unstoppable. "I would bleed 1,000 times over. I would die for you." She leaned down, kissing me softly, tears falling onto my cheek. "I know, and that's what scares me, because I would die for you too." The kiss deepened, slow at first, then desperate. Weeks of recovery had kept us careful, gentle, but now, adrenaline from the memory, relief from survival, love too fierce to contain, it all ignited. I pulled her gently on top of me, mindful of my healing side. She straddled my hips, hands framing my face, kissing me with a hunger that matched my own. Clothes fell away, her sweater, my shirt, the barriers we had maintained for healing. Skin to skin, she was warm, soft, alive. I traced every curve, every rib that had once protruded from hunger, now softened by care. She trembled under my touch, gasping my name. "Daniel," she whispered, voice breaking, "I need you, all of you." I rolled us carefully, settling over her, eyes locked. "You have me, always." We moved together, slow, deep, reverent at first. Every thrust a promise, every gasp a vow. She arched beneath me, fingers digging into my back, tears streaming as emotion overwhelmed her. I kissed them away, murmuring love against her skin. The pace built, urgent, passionate, weeks of restraint shattering. She cried out, clinging to me as waves crashed over her. I followed moments later, burying my face in her neck, whispering her name like prayer. Afterward, we lay tangled, sweat cooling, hearts pounding in sync. She traced the scar on my side, tears falling anew. "This is because of me," she whispered. "This is because I love you," I corrected fiercely. "And I would take 1,000 more," she curled into me, small and trusting. "I love you too. So much it hurts." In that moment, forged in blood and passion, our bond became unbreakable. The rescue had nearly destroyed us. Instead, it had reborn us. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of healing and building. Maya returned to classes part-time, escorted but determined to reclaim her life. She took on quiet roles in the legitimate side of the family business, using her nursing knowledge for community health outreach in South Los Angeles neighborhoods like the one she grew up in. Free clinics, food distributions, anonymous aid to families facing eviction. She poured her empathy into helping others escape the poverty that had nearly broken her. I watched her flourish and felt the guilt ease inch by inch. She was changing lives the way I never could with money alone. One evening in late January, as snow melted into rain against the windows, she came to me in the office, eyes bright with something new. "I have to tell you something," she said, voice soft but steady. I pulled her onto my lap. "Anything?" She took my hand, placing it on her stomach. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped. Shock hit first, pure, disorienting. Then joy, overwhelming and fierce. Tears blurred my vision. "A baby?" My voice cracked. She nodded, tears spilling. "From that night, after the rescue, when we..." needed each other so much. I pulled her close, burying my face in her hair, sobbing openly. A child, our child, a legacy born not of blood debts or old grudges, but of love that had survived fire. Guilt surged again, terror that my world would taint this innocence, but beneath it, hope bloomed. This child would know safety, warmth, love, everything Maya had been denied. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but happy, so happy." I kissed her, slow and deep. "We'll be everything they need, together." In the months that followed, we built a new rhythm. Doctor visits in private clinics, quiet celebrations, Maya's belly rounding gently under loose sweaters. I read parenting books late at night, terrified and elated. The rivals stayed quiet, Choi's truce held, the rogues vanished into prisons. My empire ran smoothly, but my heart was no longer in the shadows. It was with her, with our growing family. One night, as she slept beside me, hand on her stomach, I whispered into the dark, "Thank you for saving me." She stirred, smiling in sleep. In her, in our child, I had found redemption. And for the first time in my life, the future felt bright. The pregnancy changed everything, and nothing. Spring arrived early in Los Angeles that year, cherry blossoms blooming along Koreatown streets by late February 2025. Maya's body transformed slowly, beautifully, a gentle curve to her belly, a glow to her skin that made her even more radiant. She moved through the penthouse with a new grace, hand often resting on the small swell, eyes soft with wonder and quiet fear. I watched her constantly, unable to look away. Every kick she felt, every ultrasound image the doctor printed, tiny heartbeat flickering on screen, sent waves of joy and terror through me. Joy at this miracle we had created in the aftermath of blood and desperation. Terror that my world would taint it, that the violence I could not fully escape would reach this innocence. Guilt gnawed deeper than ever. Nights found me pacing the balcony, staring at the city I controlled, wondering if I could ever be the father this child deserved. A man whose hands had taken lives, whose name inspired fear in dark corners. How could I cradle a newborn without staining it? Maya sensed it. She always did. One evening in March, as rain pattered against the windows, she found me in the office, staring at old photos, my parents, my uncle, the family empire in younger days. She came up behind me, arms circling my waist, belly pressing gently against my back. "You're thinking dark thoughts again," she said softly, voice restrained but warm. I covered her hands with mine. "I'm thinking about what I'm bringing this child into." She turned me to face her, eyes fierce despite the tiredness from first trimester exhaustion. "You're bringing them into love, into safety, into a father who would, and did, bleed to protect their mother." Tears pricked my eyes. I pulled her close, burying my face in her hair. "I don't know how to be good, Maya. I only know how to win." She cupped my face. "You're already good. You just don't see it yet." The words were a lifeline, but the turmoil raged on. We prepared quietly. A nursery in the guest wing, soft neutrals, Korean lullaby mobiles mixed with African-inspired art. Maya chose bookshelves filled with stories from both our worlds. I funded anonymous scholarships for nursing students from South Los Angeles, telling myself it was penance. But the past refused to stay buried. In April, a letter arrived, forwarded through old channels, handwritten on cheap paper that brought memories flooding back, from a woman claiming to be Maya's aunt, long estranged. She had heard rumors, Maya living in luxury, pregnant by a powerful man. She wanted money. For family, she wrote, after all she's been through. Maya read it in the kitchen, face paling. She set it down with trembling hands. "She left when I was 8, she whispered, after Dad got sick, said we were too much burden. Now this." The injustice hit her hard, the old wounds reopening. She had endured abandonment, poverty's cruel bite, and now opportunism dressed as kinship. I took the letter, rage simmering. She gets nothing. But Maya shook her head, tears falling. "It's not about money, it's, why now? When I finally have something good, I held her as she cried, guilt twisting anew. My status had drawn this vulture. My love had made her visible to predators of a different kind. That night, she woke screaming from a nightmare, back in her old studio, pregnant and alone. Eviction notice on the door. No food, no heat. I held her through the panic, rocking her until she calmed. I'm scared, she admitted in the dark, that I'll be a bad mother, that I don't know how to give a child what I never had. You'll be extraordinary, I said fiercely, because you know what it's like to have nothing. You'll give them everything. She clung to me, and in that moment, our fears braided together, hers of repeating poverty's cycle, mine of passing on darkness. But the revelation came in May. We were at a routine ultrasound, private clinic, top doctor. Maya lay on the table, shirt lifted, gel cool on her rounded belly. I held her hand, heart pounding with anticipation. The technician smiled. Ready to find out the gender? We nodded. It's a girl. Joy exploded. Tears streamed down Maya's face. I kissed her knuckles, laughing through my own tears. But then the doctor entered, reviewing the images, her brow furrowed. There's something else, she said gently. The baby has a heart murmur. Mild, but will need monitoring. And, Maya, your blood work shows anemia. Severe. You're not absorbing nutrients properly. Maya's face drained of color. Dizziness hit. She gripped my hand hard. From before? All those years? The doctor nodded. Long-term malnutrition can have lasting effects. The room spun for me too. Shock, then crushing guilt. The child, our daughter, already carrying echoes of Maya's suffering. Because I hadn't found her sooner. Because the world had let her starve. Maya's tears fell silently. My baby, because of me. No, I leaned close, voice breaking. Because of a world that failed you, but will fix it. Everything. We left with vitamins, specialist referrals, a plan. But the emotional rupture lingered. That night, Maya sat on the balcony, staring at the city. I joined her, wrapping a blanket around us both. I keep thinking about her, she whispered. Our daughter. What if she asks why I was poor? Why I let myself get so run down? I pulled her closer. You'll tell her the truth, that you fought every day to survive, that you never gave up, and that her father found you and loved you enough to change everything. She turned, eyes searching mine. Do you really believe we can give her better? I believe in us. The pregnancy progressed carefully. Maya rested more, ate meticulously. The murmur was monitored, minor, likely to resolve. Her anemia improved slowly. We chose a name, Jian. Grace and peace, Korean and universal. In quiet moments, I read to her belly, Korean folktales, African-American poetry. Maya sang lullabies from her childhood, voice soft and strong. One afternoon in June, as her belly swelled beautifully, she took my hand and placed it where the baby kicked. Feel her, she said, smiling through tears. She's strong, like her father. Like her mother, I corrected, voice thick. The legacy was no longer just survival, it was hope. A child born of blood and passion, but raised in love. And in that revelation, the turmoil eased. Guilt remained, a shadow I would carry forever, but hope outshone it. Our daughter would know a world where her parents chose each other against all odds, where love conquered poverty's scars and power's darkness, where legacy meant breaking cycles, not repeating them. As Maya slept against me that night, hand on her belly, I whispered to our unborn girl, "You are wanted, you are safe, you are loved beyond measure." And for the first time, I believed I could be the father she deserved, because Maya had shown me how. October arrived with crisp air and golden leaves drifting across the Los Angeles streets. Jian was born on the 10th, tiny, perfect, with Maya's dark eyes and my fair skin. The delivery was long, exhausting, but when the doctor placed our daughter in Maya's arms, the world narrowed to that single moment. Maya wept openly, cradling the baby against her chest, whispering, "You're here. You're safe. You'll never know hunger or cold." I stood beside the bed, tears streaming unchecked down my face. The guilt that had haunted me for months crested one final time. This child, this miracle, born from a love forged in danger and desperation. I had almost lost them both, yet here they were, alive, breathing, mine to protect. In the weeks that followed, the penthouse filled with new sounds, soft cries in the night, Maya's gentle humming of lullabies, the rhythmic creak of the rocking chair I had built myself. I learned to change diapers with clumsy hands, to warm bottles at 3 in the morning, to walk the floors when colic struck. Power and wealth meant nothing in those moments, only love, patience, presence. Maya healed slowly, body and soul. Some nights she woke gasping, memories of poverty and the kidnapping crashing back. I held her then, whispering promises into her hair. "You're not alone anymore, never again." One quiet afternoon in late October, as sunlight streamed through the nursery windows, Maya sat nursing Jian, eyes soft with wonder. I knelt beside them, tracing our daughter's tiny fingers. "I keep thinking about where I came from," Maya said softly, voice restrained but steady. "The studio with the broken heater. Nights I went to bed hungry so I could buy formula if I ever had a baby. And now, this." She looked around, the warm room, the soft blankets, the family we had built. I took her free hand. "You earned this. Every hardship made you the incredible mother you are." Tears filled her eyes. "And you gave us everything. Safety, love, a future." I shook my head. "You gave me everything. Redemption, purpose, a reason to be better." We married quietly in November, a small ceremony on the penthouse terrace overlooking the city we had claimed together. Maya wore simple white, Jian in her arms. Uncle officiated, David stood witness. No extravagance, just vows spoken from the heart. "I promise to love you through every shadow," I told her, voice thick. "To build a life where our daughter knows only light." "And I promise to stand beside you," she replied, eyes shining. "To remind you every day that you are good. That love is stronger than any darkness." We exchanged rings, simple gold bands engraved with a magpie on hers, a promise of joy and partnership. Life settled into a rhythm. Maya finished her nursing degree part-time, then led community health programs in South Los Angeles, free clinics, nutrition education, support for single mothers. She poured her past pain into helping others escape it. I shifted more of the family business to legitimate ventures, real estate development, scholarships, youth programs. The shadows remained, but we walked in light where we could. Jian grew. First smiles, first steps, first words. "Appa," she called me, toddling into my arms. Each milestone healed old wounds. One evening in December 2025, as snow dusted the city again, an unusual sight, we sat by the fireplace. Jian slept upstairs. Maya leaned against me, hand on my chest. "We did it," she whispered. "We built something beautiful from broken pieces." I kissed her slowly, deeply. We did. Love had transcended everything, skin color, class, past sins. Wealth had not bought it, poverty had not destroyed it. Compassion and humanity had won. This is the knowledge I carry now. True strength is not in power, but in choosing love every day. This is the life lesson our daughter will learn. Kindness costs nothing yet changes everything. This is the education I never found in boardrooms or back alleys. Real wealth is measured in hearts touched, lives lifted, cycles broken. Knowledge shapes us. Life lessons guide us. Education, formal or forged in hardship, opens doors. Knowledge heals. Life lessons endure. Education empowers. Knowledge, life lessons, and education together build futures worth living. To all of you watching, may good health fill your days, joy light your hearts, and peace settle gently each night. Thank you for joining Daniel and Maya's journey. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Crimson Romance Stories, like this video, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Tell me in the comments, how did this story make you feel? Does it echo anything in your own life? Share your thoughts, your emotions. I read every one. Until next time, goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.